I didn't lose the spirit of learning. I love to learn, and thank God I had good parents and grandfather who always instilled, hey, learn things you like, and provided me a lot of resources. Now, back then, we weren't as privy to timely information. I couldn't watch Dan on a podcast and learn about real estate investing. I was reading books that were maybe 17 years old I picked up from the library.
Welcome back to another episode of Keeping It Real Estate. I'm your host, Dan Brisse, and today we have Vince Shorb joining us on the show. Vince is one of the country's leading advocates for financial literacy and a renowned thought leader. His insights have been featured across major platforms, including USA Today, CNBC, Forbes, and many others. With that said, Vince, welcome to the show.
Hey, Dan, thanks for having me.
Yeah, so your journey is fascinating, Vince. Could you share your path from financial services to founding the National Financial Educators Council, and what inspired you to focus so passionately on financial literacy?
Yeah, really, my passion started much earlier in my high school years. I was sitting in class realizing this is a bunch of junk. I'm never going to need this information. And so I was in the back of the class, goofing off sometimes, but I was reading a lot of real estate investing books. That was my early passion. And that proved successful, right? And when I was 19, I bought my first piece of real estate, a little condo, I think 29 or 32,000 out in Phoenix, Arizona. I rented. A couple of years later, when I was 19, I went under contract on a property about a mile from the beach in Southern California. When I was working as a waiter, I had a guy who trained with the gym. We went in partnership. I bought him out a few years later. And I really had some good success early on with that. But the thing I love most is when friends, even my parents' friends, our relatives would ask me about, how do I do it? What should I do? I really enjoyed that process. So I found my passion for real estate, but I also found my passion for educating others very early on. And I got into the mortgage side of things. I spent about a decade there, and I enjoyed that as well. I enjoyed helping people and hearing their stories, but I started to get disheartened from that simply because people would come in and have no clue on basic financing. Right? These are people that bought several homes, refinanced several times. They would be clueless on that. I saw a lot of people getting scammed. People would call in and say, hey, this lender told me not for nobody else to check my credit because I'm borderline to qualify. I checked their credit, 800 FICO, right? Other people would, this was right before 2008, 2009, where property values were increasing quite steadily. Rates were incredibly low. It was busy for me. And I would help these people out, pay off all their debt, roll everything up into one loan. They'd be saving $2-3 grand a month. And then 5, 6, 7, 8 months later, they'd be calling me back. Hey, I need another 50 grand. I need another 100 grand. And it wasn't because they were buying assets. It was because they were having fun, buying cars, buying jet skis, etc. So I saw the cycle. And from that cycle, I had a lot of people begging on the phone, crying, people that you wouldn't think just in horrible situation because of their lack of knowledge. And that really caused me time to reflect and say, hey, my next stage of my life, I really want to focus on helping people avoid those problems. So I founded the National Financial Educators Council, going on almost 2 decades, 19 years now. And our focus is really helping organizations and individuals scale and grow financial education programs in their local communities. It's still not taught in schools. The average kid will get less than 20 hours of financial education in their entire life. And we're also big advocates promoting FLEC subjects, financial literacy, entrepreneurship, and career readiness. 4 years of that in the high school level, so they know basic things, how to earn money and how to save, grow, and manage their money, which is still not taught.
Gosh, this is intriguing. And I love it, Vince. I'm so with you on the schooling system being a waste of time. I heard you say it right out of the gate. You were in the back realizing this was a waste of time during school. What was it that made you realize it? Because it seems like some people realize it and others don't. They just get sucked into the system of, I got to hit this grade. I got to get this to this college. And what do you think the difference was between you and most folks coming through high school?
Yeah, I think early on, I was reading the real estate books, and I was a good studier on things I enjoyed, but the math that I was learning through the real estate books wasn't what I was learning in high school, not even remotely close. And I was trying to think, how will I ever use how to quantify the scope of a, hypotenuse, what I don't even know. So that was point one. The next thing is, I know I don't want to be a scientist. I care less. And that makes science and math make up a third of a person's high school career. I took English. First 2 years were good. How to communicate, research, those are good. But the last 2 years were literature. I don't care. Foreign language, I want to know a few cuss words, how to order some, go down and get around in Mexico. I went to Mexico a lot as a young kid. I lived in Southern California. So I wanted to be able to get around, but I didn't need to know these deep conversations. So I just was thinking about how I'm going to ever apply these things in my life. And I realized, why am I learning this? And that frustration grew and grew. But thankfully, I didn't lose the spirit of learning. I love to learn. And thank God I had good parents and grandfather who always instilled, hey, learn things you like, and provided me a lot of resources. Now, back then, we weren't as privy to timely information. I couldn't watch Dan on a podcast and learn about real estate investing. I was reading books that were maybe 17 years old. I picked up from the library. There was no Barnes & Noble back then, no internet back then. The first website came out 2 months after I graduated, August 1991. So today we have the beauty and fortune of information. I'm glad I learned young and focused my energy on areas that were important to me in my life.
Yeah, that's great. I love it. I'm curious, total side question here that's coming up based on what you're talking about. Are you familiar with a school called Apogee?
I've not heard of them, but I will look them up. Yeah.
Yeah, take a look. There, it's a new school system in America. It's a private school, but it's really built on entrepreneurship, leadership, core values, things that I would say are actually things you're going to use and learn in the real world. So just curious.
Thank you.
But continuing on, so through National Financial Educators Council, you've worked personally with over 20,000 individuals. Is that correct?
Yeah, that was through my mortgage years. And also I did a lot of personal coaching in my early years. So early on when I founded this organization, we were focused on youth. We were actually the National Youth Financial Educators Council because I want to help them proactively. We expanded since, and we serve all ages. But through my mortgage side, and then in addition, my personal coaching side, 20,000 people I served. And that was where I saw, and what I made served was taking application or going through the coaching application, right? Working with them in some capacity, either getting them into a loan or getting them into, some coaching process where we're proactively helping them. But, through that, I just saw the average person makes some very simple, easy, commonly avoidable mistakes if they had more knowledge. Not only more knowledge, but if we help them shape some positive behaviors early. Currently, advertising is huge, right? It has a major influence on people, and kids are being exposed to a lot of ads very early in life, which is really shaping consumerism. It isn't bad if you have the money and a portfolio and some investments, right? But if you don't have those things, hey, they're not teaching delayed gratification. No advertisers out there saying, buy this car after you save money, you have some assets, you have some emergency fund. They're saying, buy it now, otherwise you aren't cool.
Yeah, right. So what does it look like, personal coaching with you? Let's just say, you're setting these shops up. It sounds like local shops to help educate in communities. Is that the main focus, or is it one-on-one coaching with someone like yourself with these kids?
Yeah. Great question. So currently our model, we had some early success. We just couldn't handle the volume, right? The first 3 years, we kind of figured out doing it personally. After that, we focus on helping people in local communities grow and scale local financial wellness programs, whether they're teaching groups like education classes, etc., Zoom, Facebook Lives, whatever. We're providing them the training on how to teach effectively, communicate effectively, the resources, the curriculum, lesson plans, etc., and all the things that they need at each stage to launch a program and also to fund and scale a program. We do the same on the coaching side. Now, the coaching side, it requires some different sets of skill sets because we're acting a lot like an underwriter would, right? We're understanding their financial situation on such a deep level, and we're providing education and guidance. And through that, they're actually taking the action. So the end goal of a coaching that work with our certified coaches is for the person to leave there better financially, good behaviors, and empowered to make future decisions in alignment with longer term goals.
Got it. So there's two parts really You've got the education classes, for the first 3 years, you guys did it personally. Now you're helping local communities scale. So you'll come into a local community and help set up education classes, Zoom, Facebook, all the resources and curriculum methods for them to continue on. Or in the coaching side, you're training folks up to become certified coaches to teach your curriculum in different parts of the country and world.
Exactly correct. We work a lot with different organizations, schools, colleges, universities, financial advisors, a lot with realtors and mortgage professionals. Back in my mortgage day, hey, you had somebody that did not qualify. We didn't have drip emails in. Now somebody probably put them in a drip email system, but now a lot of mortgage professionals are nurturing that relationship through either financial education, financial coaching. A lot of realtors are doing first-time home buyer programs, right, to get them to that stage where they actually can qualify and learn about it and be good clients, right? I realized when early on, a lot of people didn't want the smart or well-qualified clients. I always loved them because they knew what was going on. You can talk straight with them, give them the details, they make that decision. And that's where, I want people to be. To be good clients for those people, but also, hey, where there's some ability for them to nurture them to that next stage. Yeah, you don't qualify now, but let's get your credit repaired a bit. Let's get your savings up, and these things in order and work together toward this goal.
Yeah. So from your perspective, what would be some key financial skills or knowledge that you believe every real estate investor or even someone who'd like to own a single family home should be learning about and mastering, if you will?
Yeah, I think mastering is a very good term. I'm a big believer in mastering your craft, right? I think it's very important. And within real estate, there's a few things. Hey, that purchase process, the negotiation side, the locating side, the inspection side of things, right? Right now, my weakness up until now has been kind of the repairs, investigation, and inspection side. In my place right now, I've been doing all the work myself over 2.5 years. I thought it was going to be a year project, but plumbing, electric, because I knew that was my weakness. So I wanted mastery of that. And I've learned a whole heck of a lot. Now, when I talk to contractors, I'm able to give them very clear guidance, inspect their work at timely basis. So that's one side of thing, that purchase side. The other is financing side, critical. A lot of people didn't know what was required to qualify. They would come in all confident thinking, hey, I'm ready to get this loan. It's like, you're not even close, right? So that financing side is important. And then just an overall general plan. So I think, those three components, there's some nuance and I could dive down to the niches there, but I think if they know how to find, locate, and secure a property, that financing side, then how it fits in with the overall plan, I think they're in a good shape there.
Yeah. Maybe you could share an experience or a story where someone came in and you improved their investing real estate experience. Maybe they helped them close a deal or helped them see something they couldn't see. Is there any, real life stories that you have of someone's approach and helping them create success in real estate investing?
Yeah, mine might be a little old because I've been out of that personal side for about 15 years now. Okay. But we have a great person out in, she's on our New York chapter, Allison McQueen. She's a real estate agent out in Brooklyn, New York. And she's doing some great things with first-time home buyer program. She's been doing this for years. So she came to us wanting to improve her programming to see better results. She joined our New York Financial Educators Council board. She'd been doing some great things with first-time home buyers and really nurturing those relationships. And a lot of people that did not think they can ever buy real estate, now she's in that process of helping facilitate that transaction. So there's numerous stories that we hear about that, and I think the main thing she expresses to me is the confidence change in somebody. A lot of it's the pen and paper, the penciling out deals, fine. A lot of people already know kind of what to do, right? They kind of know, hey, here's the procedures, but when they get a level of understanding and practice, she has them do a lot of real world activities. When they get that type of understanding and confidence, then they really see that confidence grow. And I think with any type of investing, if you don't have confidence, you're putting yourself in a very bad position. When things go against you or when things move differently or when things go out of sort, if you don't have that confidence, a lot of people freak out. You've probably seen people freeze or make very rash decisions. So I think, the end goal of any type of education program is really helping them gain that confidence and that mastery, going back to a point you made earlier, so that when if change of the market happens or anything happens, plumbing breaks, right, and it floods out the bottom floor, they feel confident to make those decisions timely.
Yeah, it's great. I can relate to that. As we were starting out and looking for a deep training, there was ideas of like, I think I've got it and I've got kind of an idea, but to align yourself with someone who's done it repeatedly and successfully close the loop or hit a goal, it really does help your level of certainty and your ability to move through all of the noise like a laser. And so I can't speak enough to what you're saying here, Vince, in getting aligned with somebody who has the results you want or has done it repeatedly, to learn from them. And, I think it's wrapping it back to school. The teachers that I was learning from in high school didn't have anything I wanted. And most of the time were teaching based off of theory, a book. And really my goal would be to be taught by someone who's doing it right now, real life. Like, here's examples. We just did it, the last 90 days and here's the result. And so I think that's probably what you're really speaking to, is you're getting to that point of working with people so they have that level of confidence in someone who's already done it so they can create those results for themselves.
Great point. And to piggyback on that, I had a teacher in college. This was after I graduated college. I went through college. I don't know why. I just wanted a piece of paper because people said I should, just as a security blanket, I guess. Having to do it over again, I would not have done that. But I took a lot of classes that weren't credited toward getting a degree or anything. One of the classes I took was a real estate development class. I took a lot of real estate classes, didn't apply toward my degree or anything. But the first day I asked the teacher, hey, tell us about some of the projects you did. Tell us about some of the things. He did one project, went bankrupt, and now he's teaching, right? I'm like, everything I learned in this class, I'm going to take with a grain of salt. I can't put any trust in this teacher because he hasn't been out there successful doing that. And, it's really important, to your point, hey, you have people that have had success to follow.
Yeah. So just to piggyback on what you're saying here, when you say your professor went bankrupt, the thing that comes to my mind, I've read several books from these billionaires, and they talk about one of their core concepts is who do you listen to? And that really resonated me when I was young. Who am I getting my advice from? Have I verified that they have the results and the outcomes that I want to create? Because if they haven't done it, why would I listen to them? So I appreciate the further confirmation and reminder of really getting clear on who you listen to. And in this day and age, there's so many people with so many opinions, and it's so easy to get information. And, really, I think sometimes you got to slow down and first trust and verify that, yeah, this is a person who I can put my trust and faith in. And I have verified that they do know what they're doing and they are creating the results and outcome I want to create.
Yeah, the beauty of today, we have access to so much information. The challenge is we have to really do our due diligence on that information.
That's it. I think that's a massive point to hear you guys. And a nice reminder for me is do the due diligence, slow it down. Am I certain that this is somebody who I should be learning from? So
very true.
It's good. So for real estate investors, when they're evaluating opportunities, what would be some foundational financial concepts that should guide their investment decisions from your perspective?
I would say from a personal side, hey, can they afford it? Can they, does it fit into their overall budget? That's where I see a lot of people go off because they're not planning ahead. They don't realize the costs of certain things, especially newer ones, right? They don't understand when you open up a wall, the trouble that can be presented. Every wall I opened at this place, there was a problem, right? A little mold here, a little electrical issue there. That adds up. So make sure you can afford that. If you're doing any older fixers, anything like that, make sure your pad is there. So I think having an overall plan, being capitalized enough to get into these deals, and then sourcing those right deals, right? If you need to go down a few levels on the pricing, do it. You don't need to buy that, bigger fourplex or something early on. Maybe you start with a smaller condo or single family residence, something like that. So make sure it's within your budget. The biggest place I see people go wrong is when they're just overextended and something happens. You have a bad tenant that trashes the place, right? But hey, if you have that capital, now you're okay, right? It sucks, but you're still okay. And just knowing the numbers, right? I think that I saw one of your recent podcasts about the importance of penciling out deals and knowing the numbers inside and out, and making sure you're confident with those numbers, I think is key. If there's any legislation or anything come up with that tax rate, or here in Texas, we have a huge increase in insurance costs because of recent hails, tornadoes, etc. You need to kind of understand that, predict that, and having good realtors and people around you and experts like you and others that you're learning from. That's always a key thing. Like going back to what you said, finding those mentors that have been there and successful.
Yeah, gosh, such good points, you guys. I'm just going to touch on a couple, Vince, because I can't stress it enough as well. Having some padding in your budget, having that rainy day fund, having the correct underwriting, because one thing I can say with certainty with real estate is it's never going to go exactly how you think. We've never bought a deal, and we bought almost 30 deals now in our existence at Granite Towers. We've never once underwrote a deal where every single number we put in our spreadsheet was 100% accurate. We've been close sometimes. We've hit NOI very close, which is great to see, but there is always a surprise. And so it's just absolutely critical to be able to build that in before you go and close a deal, because like Vince just shared, when you have to fix it because you got a vacant unit, if you don't have the capital, that's just going to sit vacant. And that unit is not going to become nicer. It's only going to become more of a problem. You might have a pipe bust. Now no one lives in there. You might have, mice showing up, and you might have a fire. There's so much stuff that can happen. So it's just so critical to really come in eyes wide open, and with experience you'll gain more of how much to be underwriting. One piece that we've changed in our underwriting model with 1960s and 1970 built product is just $2,000 per unit per year for unit turns after you're done with your CapEx. So that's a big number that wasn't as big a few years ago. And a part of that is that we've got inflationary costs, and that's just what it costs now. And so if you get that right and you buy at the right price, all good. The problem is when you don't get that right and you don't buy at the right price and you get your numbers too thin, and now you're in a tough spot. What trends or shifts in today's economy is really something you believe that's going to impact real estate investors? Is there anything that is your eyes wide open on, biggest challenges that you see coming in the next 5 years, or even biggest opportunities that you'd be leaning into?
I think there's always a lot. Right now, there's a lot of uncertainty, right? I don't think uncertainty is a bad thing, because when markets are good, then you have people clamoring over each other. You're buying at higher prices and so forth. So I think a little uncertainty is good for the purchase side of things. We don't know what's going on with the interest rates and so forth. I have knowledge of certain areas. Like I like the North Texas area personally, right? So I spent a lot of time studying there. I see the growth. They're putting a ton of development in this area. So I like that. From a macro side of things, interest rates, inflation, I've been right sometimes. I've been wrong sometimes. I don't want to give your listeners any bad guidance there. But just like anything, hey, nobody knows, right? I wish I did, but I think there's a lot of uncertainty. A lot of things are moving. I think they're moving in the right direction finally in terms of inflationary pressure and different things. We'll see what goes on with tariffs and interest rates and so forth. We'll see. But at least from guidance for your audience, I say, hey, if you can really know an area, right, where what's being developed, what's growing, what the trends are in your local area market, I think that's really important on that micro level. And on that macro level, it's tough, right? It's really tough to gauge. So from the only guidance I give, hey, learn the area that you really want to invest in and focus your attention on as well as possible. Know what's coming up, know what changes are occurring, know the trends in the local market. And I think that's at least one variable we can address with some confidence.
Yeah, and I won't hold you to it because, like you just said, it's almost impossible, if not impossible, to know for sure where things go from here. But your prediction of interest rates over the next 12 to 24 months, what would you, no crystal ball, but if you're just giving your best insight, what do you think's coming?
Well, I place bets that they will be lowering. So I've taken higher interest rates on properties. So I did, rolled so I didn't pay any points. In addition, I took a higher rate to reduce the costs. So I put money into that. I'm also bet against it in other ways, but my money's on that. We'll see. I'll hope for that. We'll see where that goes.
Yeah. And you think inflation, if rates are coming down, inflation's likely under control. Are you in that boat, or do you think we've got some work to do yet?
We'll see. I don't understand exactly how these tariffs will impact us. It seems like nowadays everybody's a tariff expert. It's like all of a sudden they're experts on tariffs. It depends on where wood's sourced, how much we're bringing back into this country and so forth. So I think a lot has to do with building supplies. Now, as I mentioned earlier, I've been remodeling this place. I bought everything early on. My entire place was filled. 4 toilets, shower inserts, everything was filled early on because I knew the cost and I thought costs were going to continue to rise. I won that bet, right? Now I probably save 50% on my building costs. Now, granted, 3 rooms of this were completely filled with stuff, kitchen cabinets, everything like that. But so I saw that inflationary pressure coming. I bet on that side, and I just wanted to know my costs getting in here, and we'll see what happens on that interest rate side. But my hope is, hey, we have inflation tamed a bit, and rates will start to come down.
Yeah, I got you. Okay. Appreciate it. So, I think about with what you offer to your clients, your customers, Warren Buffett says that your biggest asset will be what you know and your earning ability, your earning power. And I think about that a lot, because we are constantly earning capital and putting it to work. And sometimes I think I put maybe a little too much in my ability to put my capital to work and don't focus enough on, building me. And I've definitely been through some great leadership courses and I read books. I probably could boost my reading time. What would you say though on that comment, Vince? Would you agree with that? And what else would you add to that, if anything?
No, I fully agree. I think, you're the biggest investment you can make, right? Things involved in you. Now, I think I do a lot of learning. I'll say I read books, but I skim through to pick out information. So I don't know if the literary people would consider that reading, but I strive for finding information online. I get into it, YouTube videos, so forth, whatever, podcasts, etc. But I think the more I learn, the more I can test and implement into my business and my investing. And I think the more you're investing in yourself, that's always an investment that will yield some type of return in the long run, right? Yeah, you may be spending some money going to these classes and buying these books, but really, if you're gaining a couple pieces of information each time, that's a great thing. And even sometimes it's one thing that's like that aha moment where it's like, okay. And I heard a few weeks ago on your podcast, you didn't mention the book, but I'm thinking you're referring to Blue Ocean Strategy when you said, find that one thing about your business or what you're doing that makes you stand out and unique. And was that the book you're referring to? I'm curious.
The book is actually Good to Great, where they talk about the hedgehog concept. What can you be the best in the world at? Yeah.
Yeah. Good to Great's an excellent book too.
Excellent.
But the Blue Ocean Strategy, I love. And, it's like, those types of books, I was able to pull out of that. Hey, what is it that we want our company to be known for, right? And our focus, this was 5-8 years ago when I read that book, and that book really completely changed the trajectory of our company. We focus on elevating standards. We became accredited. We focus on leading the industry in terms of student outcomes, teacher outcomes, etc. And that helped us stand out. So just like that one book that was randomly recommended to me made a big difference in the business side, but also from the real estate side, it's talking about, hey, what's your competitive advantage? What makes you stand out? So when I am going into properties and making improvements, I'm thinking that in the back of my head as well.
Yeah. Yeah. That's great. I couldn't agree more. Like you come across one book. There's a book called How to Win Friends and Influence People, and by Dale Carnegie. Super popular book. I'm sure most people have heard about it on our podcast. And I've read it up a couple times, and I'm re-listening to it, and I'm listening to it with my son, Zealand.
Oh, great.
When we were driving to school or when we're together. And there's a chapter on how important smiling is. And for me, like you hear that and you're like, simple, like just come with the smile. And I find myself so often, especially on this podcast or sometimes on the phone, where I just got a straight face. And now, so my son and I have made a little contest of, hey, if we catch each other not smiling, we'll just do a quick, a little smile at each other and just remind them. And it's been kind of fun. I mean, it's not something that I think that everyone will want to do, but it's just a quick reminder that people do business with people that are fun to be around and are happy doing it. And so if you're listening to this podcast, a simple thing you can start doing is smiling more, and this is just with books and getting more knowledge. These little nuggets, these little things, if implemented over a long period of time, can drastically change the direction of where you end up. Yeah. And with going back to Good to Great, the hedgehog concept is what is it in your business? What is it that you do that you can be the best in the world at? And their whole thing is drill down directly on that. Instead of being an inch deep, a mile wide, go a mile down in an inch wide. And so I can relate to that too with my snowboarding career. I was really specialized in urban riding. I had a professional snowboarding career, Vince. I don't know if I shared that
I
with you.
saw that.
Yeah. And so during my career, I was very, very laser focused on urban riding. And that's really what I ended up becoming known for. Instead of being a half pipe backcountry urban racing, like it wasn't a bunch of different things. And so do you have anything that comes to your mind, Vince, on that as far as just laser focus on that one thing?
Outside of business, I think most of my attention is focused on the business. My advocacy side of things, I think, is another side of the business where I'm laser focused on getting financial education in schools. I've been at this for 19 years. It's still ridiculous. I take personal responsibility. Yeah, that's a whole industry. But here this year, I said, I'm taking personal responsibility for this failure of kids not getting a financial education. My laser focus is there. I think that's how we met, is through our FLEC, Financial Literacy, Entrepreneurship, and Career Readiness Initiative, which is promoting 4 years of financial literacy education in schools and how to earn, save, and grow money. And that's my focus now. So I'm taking personal responsibility for this, and my goal is within a decade to ensure that every kid graduates with the capabilities, the confidence to make good financial decisions.
I love that. I think that's an admirable goal and critical. Why do you think it is that high schools and schools in general don't have more financial literacy? Do you think it really is the Rockefeller way of we're here to create employees?
Yeah, it's interesting. I could put my tinfoil hat on. I think there might be some outside influences that just want some workers and don't want free independent thinkers. But I know college admission standards have a major impact. They were formed in 1892, 1893 with the Committee of 10 that outlined the same 5 subjects we spend time on today: math, science, English, social studies, foreign language. Same thing. 130 years later, after AI, all this tech innovation, still teaching the same subjects. Academia is very set in its ways. So I think there's some things there from the legislative and political side of things. There's just no real interest in that because there's a cost to that change and implementation. I think even though most parents and kids want it, there's not enough controversy, meaning if there's 50% of the people picketing, don't teach my kids about money, then 50% of people saying, teach my kids about money, I think we'd get some more movement. So from the school admin side, from the legislative side to the public opinion side, that's where we're working really trying to make some changes.
Yeah, that's great. Very good. Well, before we wrap up, do you have any recommendations of books or resources that have significantly impacted your views on finance or real estate investing that would be good to share with our listeners?
Yeah, I would, for me personally, that blue ocean strategy always stands out in my mind. 10X strategy you might like as well. They talk the concept of the shotgun approach, kind of like the hedgehog. When you're testing marketing, hey, first test it with a shotgun. For those who know, shotgun throws out little BBs and pellets everywhere. Then when you find something that hits, you get laser focus, sniper rifle on that one area. And I think those were kind of the main ones. I like some other books as well, but may not be relevant. But to piggyback on what you said, those might be the most relevant there.
Awesome. So, well, thank you so much, Vince, for joining us on the show today. And if our listeners wanted to get a hold of you, how can they reach out to connect with you?
Yeah, thanks for that, Dan. LinkedIn, Vince Shorb, Shorb. I also have a YouTube channel under National Financial Educators Council. That's where I put most of my advocacy videos. And then our website, financialeducatorscouncil.org.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for tuning in to another episode of Keeping It Real Estate. Please do us a huge favor and leave us a rating and review, as it helps us continue to bring on great guests and provide really great content. Thank you so much. We'll see you guys next week on another episode of Keeping It Real Estate.